first things first, I'm sporting merchandise. Olin Rogers, Star Cadet, his company. Also, we're getting closer and closer to football season.
Mm-hmm.
As the summer starts, that means the fall is getting closer and closer. So,
if they allow them to have football,
they're gonna have football.
Okay.
The U.S. would turn on its head if they didn't allow football. Anyways.
Well, they didn't allow basketball.
Yeah, but football is an American thing, dude. Oh man, don't mess with football. Go Pittsburgh. Heck yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, dude. All right, we're gonna talk today about our favorite editor softwares.
Editor software.
Yeah, editing softwares.
Editing software.
For films, movies, videos, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the ones we got started on, the evolution of the process, and hopefully some of this information, it will be helpful to you if you're looking to pick up editing or you're looking to move on to another editing software to make yourself a little bit more professional or to, learn a new skill.
Yeah.
And so we'll give some tips about things to look for whenever you pull up an editing software, things that is pretty much across the board, or that in my experience, has been across the board. And hopefully this information is helpful and intriguing and informative for you guys. So we're going to talk through our experience with editing softwares.
So the very first software we ever used was Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah. Which doesn't exist anymore, I'm pretty sure.
I think a version of it probably does.
There's probably a Windows-based video editor, but it is not called Windows Movie Maker anymore.
No, I don't think so.
It was on the old Windows software.
It would come with every computer. It was just kind of like a built-in thing that it would It's kind of like iMovie.
Yeah, it's very similar to iMovie. You have a limited amount of video tracks and audio tracks. Mm-hmm. It's like one or two. It's like one video track and like two audio tracks.
Yeah, but we found out, I remember, we would place what we wanted on the track and we were like, okay, that's what we want. That's one track. We would render it out. Then we would place it back in software and put another track. So we'd put them together, render it out again, do it again, till we got what we wanted. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You could put multiple video files on it, right? You just couldn't stack them.
No, you couldn't. Well, like I'm talking about over each other. Like if we wanted like this sound effect with the audio and this.
You were talking about audio. Yeah, if you wanted to stack it, you had to keep rendering out, create an audio file, then add a new one, and create more layers by just a continued process. If you don't know what rendering is, it's pretty much just taking all the information you put into an editor
and condensing
it into one audio file, a video or audio, or a combination of both file, like a MP4 or a WMV, I think is what the Windows Movie Maker at the time we always exported as. There's a whole bunch of video editing files that you can save a project as, like MOV and stuff, but we won't get into that. That's boring content.
We're gonna make nerds out of people.
Not that kind of nerd. We want to make geeks out of people. And so we started off on Windows Movie Maker, and that was where we learned the basic functions of how to edit something. We understood, okay, so you get a video clip, and then you get another one, and you put it next to each other, and you play, and it becomes one. You export it out or render it out, and it's one video clip. It's a piece of work. You know what I mean? That was where we started connecting the dots about how video editing worked. It's very useful if you've never done or understand how video editing works, to start on something really simple.
Yeah.
It's important because it's going to connect some dots, because if you look at something like Premiere and you just see it, you're going to be so overwhelmed. You don't even understand how editing works, let alone what all of these functions and abilities are. That's going to be so incredibly overwhelming. And so I would recommend first off, if you're just getting started and you're just interested in the video world, doesn't matter if you like cameras, you're going to have to edit at some point. Get yourself some knowledge, some skill in editing so you can edit your work and do that slowly. Start small, work your way up.
So then the second software, we wanted to upgrade a little bit, and so we used Vegas Pro 9, version 9.
Yeah, and I don't even know much about Vegas these days.
Why did we choose Vegas over anything?
We chose Vegas because the guy that kind of sparked the interest in me, Josh Pinnell, to do video, he used a version of Vegas Movie Studios for his edits. And we were like, wait, there's a program out there that you can do like 6 video tracks.
Or as many as you want.
As many video layers as you want, as many audio layers as you want. Like, you don't have to re-export and add it back in. No, you just do whatever your creative mind wants.
And that was like, what did we pay for it? I guess it was probably like a one-time upfront purchase.
I think it was probably like $200 or something, you know?
Yeah.
And then you can get it on a disc and you download it to your computer, and now you have the program. I will say the problem with that, doing it that way, which they still have things like that, there's a lot of bugs in those things that you can't fix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of bugs in those kind of programs that you can't fix. They work hard to get out all the bugs, but once you get that disc, you don't get like upgrades or fixes for bugs in the software. You just got to live with them. And so there's a whole world of YouTube tutorials on how to, hack a bug in a system, when today it's not as necessary, because if there's a bug, they just fix it and have you update the program online. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. What was some interesting things about Vegas that stood out to you?
I think it was Vegas that we did. We had the first logo that we kind of had for like a Wiseworks, because we wanted to have some kind of branding thing that would brand us, even if we were just making home movies, I guess. So we had, I think it was Vegas, that they had like an artificial lightning bolt. You could kind of move it and manipulate the lightning bolt however you wanted.
Yeah.
So
it was like an overlay.
Yeah, it was definitely an overlay that was in the software. You just kind of, you could rotate it and put it however you wanted. We had this lightning bolt that it would shoot in.
I think our sister made this.
Yeah, Clarissa. It would shoot in, and when it hit the screen, our logo would pop up. There was like multiple. It was like, shoot this would pop up. Shoot another thing, and it would pop up.
Another part of our logo would pop up.
It was very basic because we were just using this stuff for the software, but that concept is a really cool thing. If you like made your own, that sounds like a cool logo.
Yeah, and exactly. And we were exercising our creativity. I will say, whenever someone is growing their creativity, it's always going to be cheesy, because it's always going to look like every other creative person's first project, first pieces of work. You know what I mean? It's going to look different, but the effects on it are going to be similar. It's going to have the same kind of timing. It's going to have the same kind of feel to it. It's going to feel cheap.
Yeah, I guess.
But it's all a part of the process. When you're editing, you're going to create stuff that you're like super proud of, and then like a year down the road, you can be like, oh, that's a bad edit, or that's like not very artistic, or that's not very, detailed. It's not as cool as I thought it was. And that's the part, that's with everything you do almost, but it chills out a little bit more the more you do it, where it's not like, oh, that whole project is trash that I did a year ago, but you're like, okay, that project I did a year ago, I would do like these couple things differently, but it's not like a terrible project at this point, So you become better and you become more happy with your work over time, but there's still going to be things that you can always improve on. But with editing, what do you think, going back, what was the jump like for you going from something so basic like Windows Movie Maker to Vegas 9? I will say this.
No.
You and Clarissa, our sister, you guys got into editing before I did.
Yeah, kind of.
I was more focused on the camera. I was like, let's do this video. And I would only edit kind of when needed. And you guys did a lot of editing initially.
I remember something that we created. It's just very cheesy, but I don't know when it came out, but the song "Whip Your Hair Back and Forth." Do you remember?
Yeah.
We got the video of the Lion King, the cartoon Lion King.
Recorded it with a camera on the screen.
The Disney cartoon Lion King, the part where they're singing Hakuna Matata, and he's growing up, flipping his...
Walking across the log bridge, and they're just doing this with their heads.
His mane is whipping, so we got the song "Whip Your Hair Back and Forth," and we took like the remix version. It wasn't the original, like just "Whip Your Hair Back and Forth." That Willow Smith created, and we like did some effects
Just
on
did
it.
a
We
bunch
color
of edits.
correcting. We
Yeah.
did.
It was essentially a music video meme kind of thing.
Yeah, we like color corrected it to match with the music to just of the lion just whipping his hair back and forth, and that was a little bit of creative thing that was just odd.
It was odd. Those kind of projects are so important because you're like, I have this idea. I think it's funny. It's not really worth anything, but I think it'll be fun to do, and it might make some people chuckle, you know?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the basis for memes now.
Dude, you
just create cheap memes.
Yeah.
And we just created a cheap video that was like made to this song, and it made us laugh a little bit, you know? And it was fun to make, and we would like do slow motion parts, and then we would like speed it up, and depending on the feel of the song, and we were kind of letting the song guide the visuals, even though it was the same clip over and over and over again. And so that was fun. Yeah, I remember that. That
was on Vegas 9.
That was on Vegas. And then there was the issue I had with Vegas for a long time was that for some reason this one camera we had, whenever I would import it, before I learned how to make like a timeline's settings and like how to change them, I just relied on the program because I didn't know a lot about like the data and all the information and everything. I just relied on the program to adjust the timeline for the way I shot the video. But for some reason, Vegas had this weird thing that I would import my media and I would put it on the timeline and it would stretch my video. So for a while there, all of my videos were stretched to full screen, but I shot it in the camera in 16:9 widescreen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to control it. I worked so hard to try to figure it out, and I could never figure it out. So for a while there, all of our videos were stretched. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I mean, now everything's widescreen.
Yeah.
But I remember being a kid and like you'd go to the store and you're going to buy a DVD or a VHS or whatever you're going to buy, and there was a widescreen version and a full screen version. Do you remember that? We would always choose we thought full screen was better.
We thought full screen was showing us the whole thing.
Yeah, but widescreen is.
Full screen was cutting off the sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always chose the full screen. I think it's because we grew up with a box TV. We didn't grow up with a 16:9 TV.
So, man, that's a funny memory. Just to choose the full screen.
Choose the full screen. Now, why would you choose the widescreen? Why would you choose that?
So, we didn't have concept of like what was the right way of doing it. At that point.
Yeah, we were figuring it out. Me and Joshua are self-taught. And I will say that's so important. You have to be self-taught in this industry, because if you don't learn how to teach yourself the basics in video up front and you rely on other people to teach you, then you're not going to have good skills to morph with the times when technology changes and more things come out and more things are available to you, or the industry changes fundamentally as it has in the past 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to learn how to teach yourself and to grow that skill, so when new things come about, you are learning that yourself and you're able to keep up with the ever-changing, world of video.
So let's move forward a little bit to the next software before we get to the one we use now.
Mm-hmm.
What other softwares have you used in the past?
I will briefly mention I've used Avid. I hated Avid, which is it's hard for me to say because some of my favorite shows were edited on Avid. Things like Game of Thrones. Man, Hollywood has so many films that they edited on Avid. And Avid, in my experience, is just, it takes so long to do the simplest stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like their shortcuts, their commands, everything. It just took so long to do the most easy things in Avid. And maybe it's just because I wasn't proficient at it, but honestly, Avid just seemed way too tedious and way too time consuming. It took forever to get a project done, and you weren't even like super happy with the project at the end.
Yeah.
I've also used a program that no one's probably really heard of called Edius. You've used Edius?
Yes, that was
Yeah.
the one I was going to bring up. I worked at a TV station for about a year,
And I interned at the same TV station.
but I worked there.
He got a job.
I did a little bit more. I
Did
got
a little bit
a little
more.
dough, and I was there
You
for a
got dough
year.
out of
You were
it.
there for like
I was there for
a
a
semester.
summer.
Yeah.
Like 3 months.
So I worked at this TV station as an editor, and that's what they used.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had they probably had an upgrade version from when you
Yeah.
were there, because you were there before me. I went there a couple years later. So the version I had was more upgrade. I would say it's good at doing basic, quick edits.
Mm-hmm.
But at like color correcting, you could, but it was hard to do like color correcting and effects and all that stuff in this software. For me, I didn't like it for that.
Yeah.
It was good for doing quick, fast edits, which what you do in a lot of TV station type thing, because
Yeah.
we get the footage that we need and it needs to be on air right now,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So we would cut it together fast and then throw it in the timeline. They would put it on air.
Okay.
So that was what I used at the TV station,
Mhm.
and it was good for what it was, but I don't like it using it personally. So
Yeah. So let's move to the main one that we both used a lot, and we still use.
yeah,
Fiona, get away from the camera. So Adobe, the company, they have
Mhm.
all kinds of programs, and they pretty early on came out with an editing program, a video editing program called Premiere Pro. The first one we used was Premiere Pro CS4, and it was
Yeah.
like our Vegas, how it was on a disc. Our sister had bought the Adobe suite on the CS4 version,
Mhm.
and so, but she didn't do videos, so she was like, I'm not using this editor software. She did like graphic design and such. So we were like, okay,
Mhm.
can we use this? Can we teach ourselves a more professional program to edit video on? And
Is that really? I remember
That's how
that
we did
software,
it.
but that was Premiere Pro.
that was Premiere. Yeah, there was an older version of Premiere Pro, and I did that right before I graduated high school, and then all through the summer before I started my college.
Yeah,
my
because that
year
was
of
what you
college.
made the Red, White, and Awkward films on.
Yes. If we've talked about our cartoons on this show, we reviewed them. You can go and watch one of those older episodes. If you look up one called Red, White, and Awkward, we react to one of our first cartoons. One of the biggest projects I did on the software was that cartoon. I did it all inside of that program. And that cartoon taught me so much. Thank goodness that we just decided to do that randomly, because I don't think I would have learned the program Premiere as quickly as I did if I didn't have to do this project.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just doing those cartoons taught me so much about the way it's laid out, what to look for, and what to, pay attention to and to remember. And that cartoons are so tedious. So that repetition ingrained in my mind all of the different functions and things to get creative inside of that program with your video editing.
Yeah.
What was your experience when you first started working on Premiere?
Confusing, because we were upgrading a lot. I feel
Mhm.
like from what we were using, it was a big step up.
Yeah.
Because I guess I used Premiere, and that's what I primarily use, like, personally for
Mhm.
a chunk of our editing time, especially getting more into it. And then I worked at TV station Edius. So before this, it was like Windows Movie Maker and Vegas Pro. That was all I used.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big step up and a little bit difficult at first, but learning it I wasn't used to like looking up like YouTube tutorials how to do this. That was something that I didn't do as much back then. So that helps you doing things like editing, and you can just YouTube it and look at how to learn how to do stuff. So it took a little bit to learn, but I mean, it was doable after a while.
I would recommend, like Josh was saying, in today's world, just YouTube or look up online tutorials about the Adobe package. Honestly, the Adobe softwares are used by professionals all across the world.
Yeah.
It is becoming one of the industry standard softwares to use.
Yeah.
And so if you want to become a professional editor, you do have to start small if you don't know anything about it. But if you already know a lot about editing, then Premiere should definitely be at probably the top of your list as far as what softwares to use. Honestly, I've gotten hired for a number of jobs, and part of the reason I've gotten hired is because I knew how to operate and use Premiere Pro, because so many people use the Adobe editing software.
Just kind of as an ending comment, I'm curious, have you ever used like the Mac version? What is it? If you said
iMovie?
Not iMovie, but there's like a professional one, because there was some people that used it when I went to school.
It wasn't Avid, was it? Because Avid was kind of for Mac computers primarily.
If you said its name, I would know exactly what you're talking about, but
it wasn't DaVinci, was it?
No.
Yeah. Well, it's okay.
You probably know what we're talking about. You're probably screaming at us if you're interested in this.
If you do editing, you probably know. No, I don't think. I pretty much named the ones I've used. I've dabbled in DaVinci a little bit, but that's more for color correcting. And I've dabbled in iMovie, and I don't like iMovie.
Yeah.
One thing that I do want to end on, because I promised this at the beginning, is I want to mention what people should look for when they open an editing software. Honestly, the biggest things that you need to be looking for at the very basic level is you need to know, where am I importing my media, like my videos? Where am I putting it in my program? Where's my media bin? Pretty much the place where all of my video and audio and picture files, everything that's needed, where is that being kept inside the program to pull from, And then the second thing is, obviously, where's the timeline? Where's my preview of my timeline, my preview screen? And these are across the board. Every editor has these. And so you need to make yourself comfortable with these functions, as well as when you put video on the timeline, where's your trimming tools? So you're going to be trimming or cutting or something of that nature. There are a few tools that is in every software that is very much the same, like cutting tools and stuff, that you need to look for. And so those are just a few of the basic things that I always look for first if I'm opening up a new software. But it helps when you use a smaller, more simple one, learn those functions, and then those functions are the first thing you start learning and teaching yourself when you move to a more complicated system. And that kind of walks you into it. And then once you're into it and you understand the basics, you can start expanding your world to the ocean of functions inside of Premiere Pro,
Yeah.
And another thing to remember is that with editing, there's probably 100 different ways you can do the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
There is, yeah.
There's probably about hundreds of different ways to do the exact same thing. And so don't let people push you around if you want to do editing, because you don't edit the way they edit.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to figure out what's most efficient for
day,
you.
Well, let's pause here.
I did that to you, I know.
Just the other day, when you opened up my computer, you opened up Premiere Pro, and the first thing you said was, I don't like it. And you're like, you had to criticize how I edit. And I said, well, how I edit, I have a laptop, but it's a very small laptop.
I edit from a laptop too.
But I hook an HDMI cord up to a bigger monitor screen. It's comfortable for me, so I have a desk that I have a monitor at. But you didn't like it. I'm like, well, you're doing it from the laptop, not from the desktop that I use. But you're just criticizing me up and down.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hate going into other people's workspace, but sometimes it requires you to. The good thing is that if you know your programs that other people are using, like Premiere, that if you hate something, you can just make minor adjustments and get yourself comfortable. Yeah, workspace is a big deal. Workspace is a big thing. That's why they have customizable workspaces in Premiere. But yeah, it's important to not... People are going to criticize you if you're an editor for the way you work on things. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means you're doing it different in the way that's most comfortable and efficient for the way your brain works, honestly. It all comes down to the way your brain works.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, don't let people push you around. When it comes to editing, as long as you can do it kind of quick, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
There are always improvements to be more efficient. But ultimately, if you're getting the project done in a timely fashion, then you're going to learn those improvements over time. Don't feel like you have to learn all of the tricks and of the trade right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just learn at your pace, and you're already making wonderful steps forward just by learning and teaching yourself and being proactive to grow the skill.
Yep. So, thanks for watching this video. And
like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell. We really appreciate you guys joining us on these videos each and every week. And we really appreciate you guys staying tuned all the way up to the end if you're listening to this. That really helps our watch time on YouTube.
Yep. So, have a good day.